morning. Welcome back to The Break. It's now it's actually 19 minutes to 7 a.m. My name is Sam Gituko, and I want to introduce the panelists we have here in studio. We have Dr. Isaac Mwaura, nominated senator. Why are you laughing? Isn't that your name?
It is. It's just that you're not used to calling me that title.
Yeah, Dr. Isaac Mwaura is a nominated senator from the Jubilee Party. We have Sam Atandi, Member of Parliament for Alego Songa. Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
And we have on this other side Dr. Chris Omala, Member of Parliament for Kiminini. Good morning.
Good morning.
And you have Robert Mbui, Member of Parliament for Kathiani Constituency. Good morning.
Morning, Sam.
Great, and it's good to have all of you here. If you look at the papers, the biggest story that Kenyans have been speaking about is the fuel crisis. On the Daily Nation, they are talking about hope at last, relief for now as President Kenyatta approves payment of oil marketers 13 billion shilling fuel subsidy arrears, but tough times loom for many Kenyans. We'll be talking about that, what that exactly means. Then on the front page of the Standard, how 34 billion shilling dispute pushed Kenyans into fuel shortage. Uhuru signs bill authorizing Treasury to pay oil companies to end consumers' agony. Ruto blames corrupt officials and cartels for suffering millions, and supply is expected to be restored. And I want us to begin by, let me listen to Dr. Chris Omala, because I think apart from Honorable Atandi, you come from the farthest.
Yes.
Have you faced any challenges during this crisis at a personal level?
In terms of fuel?
Yeah.
I just came just tonight from the Great Count of Trans Nzoia, and things are very pathetic. And at a time like this, people are plowing their farms, preparation for planting. Things have come to a standstill. There's no fuel at all. Kenyans are really, really suffering. So the questions you're asking, why? We only had about 2 or 3 fuel stations, that is, I think, Shell. But others, the small ones, Rubies, we have Oryx, we have Petro, we don't have. And Kenyans must be explained to why that we have this shortage of fuel. You know, fuel cuts across the economy in terms of transport, in terms of farming, in terms of production, whether in manufacturing, whatever it is.
Right.
Even in schools where we have, they use the generator and all, what have you. So Kenyans needs to be explained, why are we having such a crisis? We are told it's to do with the supplementary budget, which was, I think, signed, 34 billion, which is supposed to be, I think, the stabilization fund. There's some amount of money which is supposed to be paid to these oil farms in terms of cushioning the high prices and all that. So I've just come from the village, and I'm here to update myself.
Okay.
And I'm happy my colleagues are here. I think Atandi sits in the Committee of Finance.
Don't worry, we'll get to that. First of all, I want us to listen to, sorry, Dr. Chris, because so much has been going on, including accusations that there are certain cartels within government and outside that are behind this. Let's listen to the Principal Secretary in the Petroleum and Mining Ministry, Dr. Andrew Kamau, what he has to say about the accusation that some money could have been spent otherwise.
Actually, the supplementary budget is late. It was not in a hurry. It was debated in Parliament more than 3 weeks ago.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's not in a hurry. That's the first thing. The second thing you have to understand, the government cannot spend taxpayer money without budget. So even if you have money in the bank, if you do not have a budget allocated to you, you cannot spend that money. So that is why, and budget making is the prerogative of Parliament. So we present what we think will be what we're going to spend to Parliament through the Ministry, through the National Treasury. They then approve that budget, and now we can spend the supplementary. That's exactly how government works.
Okay.
Yeah.
My question on the back of that is this. You have been in meetings since yesterday with oil marketers trying to figure out how do we get out of here. One wonders, couldn't the forecasting power of government have seen this scenario a month ago, 2 weeks ago, held those meetings already to ensure that we don't get to this point?
You know, Wahiga, you're the second person to tell me I've been in meetings all day with oil marketing companies. I haven't.
It's a normal day for you?
It's a normal day for me.
Well, it's not for many Kenyans.
Yeah, but what we're doing is, because don't forget, these people are in business. The longer they keep their fuel there, the less cash flow they have. They have to make sure that this product they have in tank gets to the marketers.
That's a bit of the explanation that PS Andrew Kamau had on Citizen TV last night. But some Atandi, I mean, when you listen to the PS giving the explanation that yes, they owe the oil marketing companies some money, but they cannot spend it because there was no supplementary budget, is it convincing in looking for the genesis of this challenge, even as Kenyans continue to look for a solution?
Thank you very much, Sam. Let me start by saying that the crisis is real. And I was in the constituency, I was in Siaya yesterday, and only Shell, which is the largest, one of the largest oil marketers in the region, had fuel. The small oil marketers did not have fuel, and I think the reason is that there's a crisis. There's a problem of cash flow within the small marketers, and therefore they are not able to get their fuel and supply. I think that is really what has created a crisis, because everybody has to go to one petrol station in the town. That is one. Two, I want to disagree with the PS partly, because it is true that Parliament delayed with the supplementary budget, because the budget has stayed in Parliament. The estimates stayed in Parliament. The bill stayed in Parliament for long, actually more than 2 months, and we went for recess. And we did not actually finish up with it in good time. And that could have affected the release of resources for oil stabilization. But I think the government has a way of spending money even before it's approved by Parliament. The government has been doing that. By way of Article 223, the government can actually spend money on emergencies, and later on Parliament can be able to approve it. So I think on this one, I think the government should have actually, used Article 223 to spend the resources, and Parliament would have actually regularized that expenditure later. So on that one, I think I want to disagree with the PS, that somebody might have slept on the job.
So what is the real problem? Because if what you're saying is what happens even with the oil industry, why then didn't they spend and come and seek approval later?
I think that there are two issues here. There's the issue of the contribution by the oil marketers. Oil marketers trying to interfere with the flow of oil resources to the people for reasons best known to them. Maybe they wanted to interfere with the pricing. They wanted to push the government into a corner so that the government can be able to raise pricing. So there's a contribution by the oil players, which is really absurd, which is really not good. On this crisis, the oil marketers have contributed substantially by basically holding the energy, holding oil, which should have been, released to the market.
Okay. Let's listen to what more the PS has to say, especially when it comes to fuel prices in the country.
Could there be another price hike?
There could be.
Because of local issues?
No, international issues. I think that, like I alluded to you earlier on, the price of diesel internationally has gone up $260 per ton. And for super petrol, it's $150 per ton.
So tougher days ahead.
I'm not sure. You see, the thing is, as it is now, we are not paying market price. We are cushioned by the subsidy by something like 20 shillings per litre. So really, we are very fortunate compared to what our neighbors in Uganda are paying. Or South Africa, for that matter.
And for those who feel that we've just been kicking a can down the road, that we will eventually have to pick up?
At the end of the day, the government has to take care of the mwananchi. That's our first priority. I know it doesn't seem like that many times, but that is
especially tonight.
Especially tonight.
The pictures we've shown you.
Yes, but don't forget where this is coming from. It's coming from a good place. If we had been experiencing the real prices, we would have been in a deeper situation than we are now. People would be paying much, much more. Don't forget, I told you, we've given you 53 billion. If it's your own money, we'll get it back to you. 53 billion in the last 1 year.
In subsidies alone?
In subsidies alone.
Okay, so Dr. Isaac Mora, what do you make of this situation that we find ourselves in, and the explanation coming from the Principal Secretary, and what more can be done?
I think there is a disruption of supply because of the Ukrainian war. If you look at the Brent crude oil prices, but at the same time, of course, you can see one of the marketers has actually raked in double what they usually sell in a month within just this weekend. So it serves them right because everybody is trying to stockpile, petrol, and that is not very good for the economy. I, for example, had to queue somewhere to get fuel, and the next petrol station that had what I needed, now, the supply is over. So people are really suffering. And I think I asked this question in the last parliament, the 11th parliament, about the regular way in which this is reviewed. And at that point in time, I think Richard Nganga was the CEO of the predecessor to the ERC, as it used to be called, Energy Regulation Commission. But you can see for sure, even when you look at the fuel fund, which is basically supposed to stabilize the prices in between the 2 months because of supply, now it is acting as a subsidy. And I don't think that's a way to go, Sam. Because if you have...
But isn't it the same thing?
No, not really, because, well, you can't say it. A subsidy sometimes looks like an entitlement. Because then, this one is between 3 to 7 shillings, This other one is, you can see there's a huge gap, or even 20, 30 shillings, that is being factored in. And that is going to gobble up a lot of money. You see, we talk about 4 to 5 billion, that's acceptable. But when you have about 30, 40, 50 billion going into fuel subsidy, is very untenable, especially because if you look at the plan that was there earlier on, because there is history, Sam, by now we should have been producing our own oil in Turkana. We already passed the 5th-year plan because it was actually concession of how it was supposed to be done. But now you look at it, we are still dependent on the external shocks. And that is really, really affecting the common mwananchi because the cost of production will go up, exponentially as a result of this. Even when there has been this subsidy, and even when this money is released, we don't know because already the international market has also gone up. So it is just momentary. Otherwise, the government is not going to be able, Sam, to cushion the consumer, in the next X number of months. And particularly as we go into elections, it's definitely going to be a serious campaign issue. But it also speaks to the general issue of mismanagement of the economy, to the extent that then now we are not able to, sustain what we promised Kenyans in terms of ensuring that we lower the cost of living. I have been visiting people in their homes, door to door. I've been doing a lot of door-to-door campaigns, and people have a lot of problems. They can't afford unga, for example. Like if you find people, they are literally, hungry, and that now this situation can only be exacerbated. Yeah.
There's something you've said that I'll come back to, that it's likely to become a campaign issue. Deputy President William Ruto spoke yesterday, and he was calling out on government departments and officials to come out and explain certain issues. Listen.
Where is the 39 billion shillings Petroleum Development Levy Fund meant for the fuel subsidy program as this crisis deepens? Can the Treasury also confirm or deny that the diversion of funds has been used in debt servicing and infrastructure development without the approval of the National Assembly? This is the result of collusion between monopolistic cartels and economic saboteurs on one hand, and oblivious, reckless, insensitive, and incompetent public officials on the other.
All right, so that's the Deputy President speaking about certain, different government agencies, ministers, and departments. Honorable Mboya, I see you shaking your head. I don't know why you're doing so, because you're still trying to understand the situation and look for solutions.
Sam, when you see the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya standing outside the public government office and castigate the government for which he serves, it shocks me, because I have realized that Kenyan politicians who politicize everything. The problem of that we are facing now as a nation on this matter of fuel has been very well explained by the PS. And the PS has been very clear that the major problems are two. One is international, which we have no control over. because the issues of demand and supply, because of the fact that Russia and Ukraine are involved in some conflict, obviously, once the amount of oil being supplied from that region, it obviously affects the pricing. And so this price has to be cushioned by Kenyans through the subsidy that the government is offering from the money that is being taxed excessively on fuel from 2020. Now, then pressure builds on that subsidy, because the amount of money meant to be paid for the subsidy has increased. And there's obviously delays because there was an issue of the supplementary budget. It's a fact that we've taken a lot of time trying to figure out how to sort these out. And one of the reasons I can tell you, Sam, is that we constantly have a problem now in Parliament. Every time we have an issue that will be solving, giving solutions to Kenyans, this team of Tanga will also be in Parliament trying to ensure that they derail government programs. So it's unfortunate that when I hear the Deputy President speak about the problems Kenyans have, and he's not offering solutions, and he still continues to occupy that office, and I'm assuming that he intends to stay in that office up to the next election, and maybe afterwards until he hands over power, I'm surprised, because I think really as Kenyans, we need to be offering solutions as politicians, not to lament. You cannot stand and complain from January till December. So I think I'm happy because the president has already given certain solutions. One, the president has signed into law the supplementary budget estimates that we passed. And therefore, already there is some money that will be used to do this subsidy. I think 34.4 billion is already available. No one is talking about the good things that the government is doing, including even helping to reduce the cost of fertilizer, which is going to help to bring down the cost of food. But when they complain, they complain about even high food prices. You realize there's also an issue of drought. Are we going to blame Uhuru for everything? You know, when there is drought, it is Uhuru. When there
raises a few questions, including that he needs an explanation about some money that had been meant for this stabilization fund. It was taken away to other projects. Because if it would appear that had it been used to pay the oil marketing companies, then it would have been proper. We wouldn't be where we are.
You know, Sam, if you look at the amount of money that is being questioned that was spent, is not much. I mean, we are talking about a subsidy that is now the debt that is owed to the oil companies is about 13 billion. The amount of money that is supposed to have been diverted is about $1 billion. So, I mean, that cannot be the reason why we are having this problem. And why then, if you are the head of, your head of government, I mean, your deputy head of government, why would you stand out there publicly and castigate public office officials and call them incompetent? Why can't you take action against those incompetent officers? Who are you asking to give answers? You know, when you stand there in front of the office and start saying, we want answers from, Wanjiko would be asking those questions, you know? I don't even stand in my constituency and ask questions. I give answers because I am elected to provide solutions. I think political leaders need to realize they are paid for a purpose. You cannot be paid to complain. You are paid to provide solutions. And the deputy president has failed us. And let's not politicize this matter for 2022 elections. Let me tell you, the same crisis can occur even after 2022. Let's talk about 2032 when he might be president. It can also happen then. Would he now be comfortable when people are castigating natural factors for affecting prices of goods and commodities in the country? I feel that we are stooping too low as Kenyans.
Okay, you know, Honorable Mbui, you're actually saying that the Deputy President will be president in 2032.
Could be in 2032.
Anyway,
thank you.
Dr. Chris Wamalwa, as you listen to Honorable Mbui, he's saying that we need to be a country whose leaders offer solutions. Have you done all you could as a parliamentarian? I know you've been busy on the trail, but have you done the best you could to really fix these challenges that Kenyans have to deal with every now and then as a representative of the people?
Thank you very much. Article 35 of the Constitution is clear that every Kenyan has a right to information, including the Deputy President. And I want Honorable Mbui to know that. And even His Excellency, the President of this country, has been on record blaming issues of corruption in his office. That doesn't mean you're lamenting. When it comes to the issue of the fuel crisis, first, I want to disagree with the PS. Whatever he has said is totally wrong. Under Article 2 to 3 of the Constitution, and by the way, we should ask ourselves, what is supplementary budget? Supplementary budget is whereby the government agencies are asking for additional funds for unforeseen circumstances. If we have many supplementary budgets, it's an indicator of poor planning. Let's start from there. So if the government agencies requested for additional funds, which must be approved by Parliament, they have a right to spend that money because Parliament has a calendar. It had gone for recess. But again, the leader of majority can request for a special sitting. Parliament can be recalled for purposes of approval. But to me, it was not a crisis as such because under Article 223 of the Constitution, the government agencies can spend money. So when Parliament is in session, within the 2 weeks, they can seek that approval. So whatever the PS was saying, it is totally wrong. But what the Deputy President has said is very fundamental. When you look at the pricing of fuel, there's a very big percentage of taxes and levies. It's almost 60%. So the fuel development levy is supposed to cushion consumers in terms of the stabilization of prices. So the issue we are asking is, where is this money? So he has a right to ask that. So Honorable Mbui cannot come up and start saying that you're going to be president. It's only the God in heaven who knows who will be the president of this country. So the Deputy President is right in terms of access to information. And Kenyans want to know, where is this money? Where is this money that consumers pay in terms of pricing? So it is something that I was actually intending to bring a motion of adjournment on the floor of the House to discuss this crisis. And it's to do with the cartels. Cartels are involved. So every Kenyan has a right to information.
How are cartels involved and who are these cartels?
The government should tell us.
No. You said it on this show.
Absolutely, because, you know, if the money comes, when you go pay for your fuel, you fuel your car, you are aware about 55 or 60% or so, it goes to levies and taxes.
No,
so the issue is...
Dr. Chris Mala, it's not so because the current price of a litre of petrol is about 134 shillings. And out of that, the landed cost is 78 shillings. The total levies and all...
And taxes, what percentage does it come to?
59.7 shillings.
That's what I said.
Which is 44%.
I said around 50%. So
60, that is
around 50 to 60. I said around 50 to 60.
And I'm just
so changes have...
It's 44%.
Yeah.
So please carry on from there.
So to the nearest...
tell me...
To the nearest percentage, actually I'm right.
44 is not close to 60.
I said 50. I said 50 to 60.
Dr. Chris.
I said 50 to 60%. Okay, carry on.
My friend.
That's fine, because you know the figure is 44%. Just answer me, because whatever EPRA, Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority, is doing in fixing these prices is coming from the law itself.
That is true.
Which can be reviewed by Parliament anytime if you want.
Absolutely.
So when you tell me about you're going to call for adjournment motion...
To discuss.
Yes, discuss, but that doesn't substantially fix anything.
The motion of adjournment, Parliament is there to discuss any matter of national importance that affect the people and resolve. So when we have a crisis like this, it is purely in order to have a motion of adjournment to discuss the crisis and to call upon the relevant agencies to come up with mitigating strategies to expedite. Because to me, this crisis has been there for long, and it's something that should have been sorted out. Because Parliament being away for that particular time, government still under Article 223 of the Constitution, they can still spend money, even if it's not been approved. So when Parliament comes, then it can be able to approve within the very first 2 weeks. So what I was trying to respond to the relevant PS is it was misleading Kenyans. And if he misleads Kenyans, it can call for his impeachment. So to discuss a motion of adjournment, it can be maybe even in the supply chain. So if I told the marketing firms, for one reason or another, as per what Honorable Atandi had said, if I told they are holding, let's say, the stocks for purposes of anticipating the increment of prices. Because when you look at the forces of demand and supply, yesterday my car almost stalled and we bought some fuel in Eldoret. The price was even higher. There was some higher premium, but we used some brokers who managed to send us some fuel of 20 liters, but they say there's some facilitation fee you have to pay. So you can see Kenyans are incurring more money, and carrying more costs.
Okay.
So the government is the first line of defense, particularly at a time when it comes to issues of transport, because it cuts across the entire economy in terms of transport, in terms of production.
No, that is true, but it still doesn't answer my question. Honorable Atandi, I'm looking for answers because if this challenge is to be fixed in the long term, because all of you have said, including Dr. Isaac Mwaura here, that the Ukraine situation is sort of affecting what we have in the country. Well, never mind that. I think the Deputy President sort of disagreed with that. But if we know that this challenge will be with us for a long time, the fixing of the fuel prices is in law. The Fuel Stabilization Fund is in law, which is sort of a subsidy. How then do we get out of this through Parliament?
I think I want to say two things. One, this is a crisis. It's a global crisis. It's not just an issue for Kenya. Did you listen to what President Suluhu was telling to Tanzanian parliamentarians? Mm-hmm. So I think for the DP to, talk like this is just a Kenyan crisis, I think that's really we disagree with him. And I want to urge Kenyans to ignore the DP because what the DP is trying to tell us is that is the Deputy President of Kenya who is very clean, who is not involved in running of government. And it is very clear that actually our government has really tried on this issue. Because when we were doing the budgeting last year, we did not know that a crisis would come, the Ukraine-Russia crisis would come. Mm-hmm. So this is something which has affected everybody. And I think I can say that the government has tried.
So what is the role of Parliament? Because we know the crisis will always be there, globally.
Yes.
So what do we do to fix those challenges so that we can even plan ahead?
Yeah, so what has happened is Parliament has done its job, cushioning Kenyans from the high prices. By the way, if this subsidy was not there, petrol would be going at maybe 200 shillings. Yeah, so I think Parliament has done its bit, and I want to urge my brother Chris that...
No, Honorable Atandi. I think the figures we got from APRA was that because the subsidy for a litre of petrol is 20 shillings,
yes,
then it should have...
It would be 155.
155.
Yes, yeah, that's fine. It would be 155. But what I want to tell my brother Chris, you don't need to bring an adjournment motion on this issue. There's no need. Because if you bring an adjournment motion on this issue, you probably will just be coming to, will just be giving members an opportunity to heckle, members of the opposition, members from your side. You don't need to do it because Parliament has done its job. And even before Parliament did that, when this issue started coming up, I'm aware that there was reorganization in government where the CS Treasury was trying to look for money from various coffers, various departments, and putting the monies together because the money needed to cushion Kenyans was substantial. So the government, I think, has done its bit in trying to help Kenyans. The crisis will persist because it's not something which we can resolve. The crisis will persist, but at least now that we have allocated about 34 billion, that will take us for maybe another 4 to 5 months. Yeah? After which now we'll have we'll have done the second budget, the second supplementary budget.
If the argument that 13 billion shillings per month, then 34 would take us just under 3 months.
We will do another supplementary budget. We can do supplementary too, and I think that is actually coming up.
So, Dr.
So our work is to cushion Kenyans through provision of allocations. Which that one we are going to do as Parliament. There's no other thing we can do.
Okay.
Yeah, because we cannot reinvent, we cannot change the laws because of a crisis. That we can't do.
I hear you, Sam Atandi, that there's nothing further you can do. But Senator Mwaura, there's a time in the global market, fuel prices was very cheap. Remember the time just after COVID happened and the grounding of flights across the world? We didn't invest in any strategic measure to really stock up and have fuel. Moving forward, how do we fix these effects of the global market on the Kenyan economy if you are to assure Kenyans of stability for a longer period?
I think
if you are to think strategically.
If you look at around 2011, 2012, thereabout, there was a new technology of getting oil, from the ground, and that really, brought the prices very low. To the detriment of the, of the various companies, profit. But I think for a long time we We were dependent on the fact that Turkana has oil. We even had the president launch the Ali oil, where, trucks would take the crude oil all the way from Turkana to Mombasa. But we've really not succeeded in terms of ensuring that we have a stable, environment for that. So it needs to be really, really investigated, because even when the creation of the State Department for Petroleum was basically to make sure that we have more focus, in that regard. But we can still see there's huge delay. But there's agency, Sam, in what the Deputy President is saying, because when you have diverted money to pay for debt, then when the crisis arises, then you have to do supplementaries, as Dr. Chris Omalo said. So it's an element of very poor planning. In fact, further to it, we had to borrow 85 billion from the World Bank, from the Bretton Woods institutions, so that we can now give this supplementary. Otherwise, the public coffers had run dry. See, we are stockpiling debt, so that even that money that is being used for subsidy is only 4 billion that is available from the fuel levy. The rest of it is borrowed. So you can imagine this crisis coming up now vis-a-vis the priorities that were supposed to be met by the 85 billion. Almost half of that money has gone to fuel. And this in itself, Sam, is not very good, because this hole that we've already dug now, who is going to fill it in? And we do not have an assurance that that is going to last for the next 4 months or whatever time that is remaining.
So in your view, what is the longer-term solution?
I think we need just to restructure the budget and also review the taxation, you see, so that then we are able to reduce the cost going forward. And ensure also that we fast track our own, because if we were to produce oil in Turkana, and I'm still going back to that point, because it is a longer-term solution, it can even if it meets the local market, I think it's very important. If you look at the newspapers also, you see, can we leverage now, for example, because there's oil in DR Congo, can we get new sources of oil, depending on our multilateral and bilateral agreements? So it needs a wider kind of planning, rather than these short-term knee-jerk reactions that only meet the need of the political momentum that is there. So I think that needs to be looked into.
Okay.
Yes.
Honorable Mbui, I want to exit from this conversation because he has at least mentioned about reviewing the taxes, because these taxes are set by Parliament anyway, and that also determines what you have to pay at the pump. But strategically thinking, if you listen to more developed countries, you'll hear they have fuel reserves. I heard the PS Petroleum and Mining yesterday say that we have stocks of up to 200 million litres of fuel. That is not so much if you look at the Kenyan economy. So what then must we change, especially from where you sit as a parliamentarian?
Yeah, first, Sam, allow me to say that Parliament hasn't failed Kenyans. Because you see, even the idea of the subsidy was thought in advance, because this was we increased the levy on fuel in 2020 because we envisioned the problems that would come after COVID-19, and clearly it has helped because the prices of fuel would be much higher than what Kenyans are paying at the pump. So we have tried what we could. And allow me to also respond to Honorable Chris when he said that, every Kenyan has a right to information, including the Deputy President, and I agree. But, with great responsibility also, the more responsibility you have, the more is expected from you. Because, for example, you heard what the court said about the president himself when we talked about BBI. They said the president is not like Wanjiko. He cannot initiate a popular initiative. So really that means that the president, the deputy have certain level of responsibility. So they cannot stand in podiums and complain and lament. Now, on the issue of this problem of power and fuel price, I think I would see one of the things that we need to consider going forward is we have a lot of solar in this country. Could we consider maybe coming up with the systems where solar is used to do more powering than the fuel. Because there's even vehicles that run on solar. Some countries in the world have adapted the issue of solar and sorted that out. Because in Kenya, we are still dependent very much on fossil fuel, which we don't have enough of. Secondly, of course, we need to explore our own fossil fuels, because I think in Turkana there was some reserves, but since the team that went there seems to have taken, you know, they seem to have run into, I think, financial issues, and the exploration has stalled. I understand there is a lot more fuel in Lamu that they could be exploring. So I think we need to figure out, is it possible to get our own oil and become self-sufficient? If we cannot do that, then let us look for other alternative means of energy, so that we can run our economy without depending purely on a product that we are importing, you know. And because when international pressures and international prices change, then it affects us, and that's really, I think, a very bad way of running a country.
Okay. All right. And of course, Honorable Atandi, we need to take a short break because we are due for it. But also, this is an interesting conversation as far as the politics of fuel crisis is concerned. So much coming up, including claims that fuel might actually be cheaper in Uganda. That is not true. We've been able to confirm that at the moment a litre of petrol is at about 171 shillings. And this is information from people who live in Uganda. We take a short break. When we come back, we talk about what's going on with the road to elections and what has just happened to IEBC from the High Court.